Hi, guys. It's me, Miss Rose, your local reading specialist. And I am coming to you again this year with our new teacher cohort. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the first days of school set the tone for the entire year. And because you're not a brand new teacher, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You either run the classroom or the classroom literally runs you. So, for our new teacher cohort, we're going to be doing a book study with the book The First Days of School: How to Be an Effective Teacher by Harry and Rosemary Wong. Okay? And in this book study, we're going to talk about how to start the year strong and how to stay strong all year long. We're going to start our first book study looking and diving into Unit A. Okay? So each month, I will be giving you different little summaries of this book. Miss Dr. Thornton does have the books in her office. If you don't already have the book, please go down and grab the book. This is going to help you to start the year strong. So if you don't already have the book, go ahead and go grab it, and we're going to dive right in. Our outcomes for this Unit A, we're going to summarize Unit A, and we're going to talk about what is an effective teacher. Now, before we get started, each of you have a either blue or yellow poly folder. And in that poly folder, you have a KWL chart. If you would, pause this podcast and go ahead and write down what you know about being an effective teacher and what you want to know about being an effective teacher. All right. For Unit A, we're going to talk about starting strong and staying strong. Chapter 1 is going to focus on why day 1 matters, because day 1 is super duper important. Chapter 2, we're going to be looking at what makes an effective teacher. And chapter 3 through 5, we're going to talk about, real talk for year 1 and beyond. What's going to help you continue that momentum with being a strong and effective teacher, not just this year, but years 2 through 25 and maybe even longer. Who knows? All right. Building your classroom community. And this is going to start on day 1 or before. You all have your rosters. If you haven't already contacted your parents, some of you even mail little postcards and letters. Go ahead and do that. You're starting your classroom community before the school year starts. Be friendly with the parents. Introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about your expectations. We're going to have a great school year this year. I'm super excited. I have X amount of number of, classroom experience, blah, blah, blah. Just be very, 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 very positive to the parents. You got to think, if you're teaching kindergarten, this is their first time, some of them, sending their babies to school. If they're first through second, they may have had a bad experience in kindergarten. And so you want to start the year off very, very positive and friendly. All right. Our key takeaways. On page 4, we're going to be looking at the effective teacher. If you turn all the way, and we'll be skipping around this book quite often, and you'll notice that, to page 98. And if you hear some pages flipping, it's because I have my book right in front of me, so that I can give you exactly, the examples that I'm talking about, and you can follow along as this podcast is going on. So on page 98, you see a chart that has um, techniques to help you implement 4 characteristics of a well-maintained classroom. It has your characteristics on the left-hand side. In the middle, it has effective teacher. And on the right-hand side, it has the ineffective teacher. Of course, being an effective teacher means that you are, you're doing things the correct way, and you are being effective with your delivery. Being an ineffective teacher, of course, means that either you're not doing it or you're barely doing it, okay? So, number one, for example, high level of student engagement with work. If you're looking at the effective teacher column, teacher has students on task and working cooperatively to achieve what needs to be done. And the ineffective teacher, the teacher is just working. So I want you to take a moment and go through this list and really hone in on the things that you are doing in your classroom currently or last year, and the things that you could change if you're not being an effective teacher to become a more effective teacher. This is your book. So I have highlights all in my book. I have sticky notes tabbed on each page. I want you to grab either a sticky note or whatever. You can tab this page. Tab this page because page 98, you're going to want to come back to and reference throughout the school year. Right? All right, now go ahead and flip back over to the front of the book to page 6. On page 6, there are 3 characteristics of being an effective teacher. Number 1, has a positive expectation for student success. How are your students going to be successful? Do you have those listed? Is an extremely good classroom manager. And we'll talk about classroom management in Unit C, but an effective teacher knows how to manage the classroom. Okay? Are you, ask yourself, are you a good classroom manager? And if you are not, don't be shy. Don't be afraid to say, this is what I need to work on. As a reading specialist, part of my job is mentoring. And one of my mentoring objectives this year is this book study. So I am here to help you. I was really good with classroom management when I was in the classroom. So if you need help, if you need pointers, I don't mind coming in and giving you some help with classroom management because that is an area that is going to allow you to be an effective teacher as a whole. Right. And number 3, knows how to design lessons for student mastery. Now, when you're talking about student mastery, you're going to essentially backwards plan. Look at the report card. Look at the standards that are being covered each 9 weeks. How can I, the teacher, get my students from point A, which is non mastery for most of them, to point B, mastering these mastery skills for the 9 weeks? Look at that report card first before you begin each 9 weeks because they're standard based. You want these students to master those standards. So, yes, we have teacher additions. Yes, they're very scripted. But your goal as the teacher is to get students to master these standards. So, however you need them to master these standards, that's what you need to do. Dr. Thornton has given us the flexibility to bring in resources to enhance our open court reading. Okay. So if you and any subject really. So if you are using those teachers editions, and that is great. Plan ahead, and we're going to talk about planning in a minute, but plan ahead. Okay. Look at the resources that you need to add in to make sure your students are mastering those skills. So go ahead and highlight that box on page 6 and tab that page because you're going to want to come back to that. Okay. Also on page 5, I highlighted an effective teacher is the strongest predictor of student achievement. And that is absolutely true. Because of those 3 characteristics of an effective teacher, that is going to drive your student success, drive your student achievement. Okay. At the bottom of page 6, I put a star beside those numbers 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom. Okay. Which just goes back to that box at the top. Okay. And then at the very, very bottom of page 6, I highlighted the 1, 2, and 3: emotional support, organizational support, and instructional support. All right, skip on over to page 7 and 8. We're going to look at those domains. Domain 1, planning and preparing for classroom environment. How are you planning and preparing for your classroom environment? Are your desks set up in an inviting way? Do you have room to walk around to monitor students? Because remember, an effective teacher is not sitting down for the majority of the day. An effective teacher is up. We're either teaching whole group, we're teaching small group, we're walking the room, we're monitoring the room. So we don't need obstacles in our way that's going to hinder us from walking the room. We want to have clear vision to every student to see exactly what they're doing so that we can give immediate feedback when needed. Domain 2, instruction. Are you planning your instruction? Are you looking at higher grades first and second? Are you looking at the tests weekly, backwards planning, making sure the students know what they're supposed to master? Kindergarten, are you looking at that report card? Are you giving the students what they need to master those skills? That is the instruction, standards based instruction. Are you teaching the students the standards in order to master those tests and the report card skills? That takes planning. You have to plan for that. You cannot come in to the classroom the morning of and say, oh, yep, that's what we're doing. We're going to do this. The pacing guide says we're going to do this. The pacing guide is just a guide. If your students haven't mastered the standard, go back and reteach. It is okay to get off the pacing guide slightly, okay? If you need help planning, if you have questions with planning, please come see me. You all have my phone number. You all have my email. You know where my room is. Come see me. I don't mind at all. I am a resource for you and to you. And domain 3, professional responsibility. What are your professional responsibilities? Keeping students safe, loco parentis, right? You are, as a teacher, you are absolutely responsible for each and every student in your classroom at all times while they are in your care. At LPS, when they come to you, you are acting as their essentially their guardian for those 8 hours that they are with you. You are responsible for every single thing that happens in your classroom with every single student. Okay. Are you supposed to talk about students to other coworkers? No, no, that's not being professional, is it? No, it is not. Is that making you an effective teacher if you are talking about students to different coworkers? No. Professionally, you are supposed to have the um, you're supposed to keep everything in disclosure. You have to be able to keep those things private because that's part of the student's rights basically. So don't go out and talk to any teachers about any data with students. If we're talking, that's why we sign the disclosure agreement in data meetings, because that is, you're not supposed to go out and talk about students with anybody. You have to keep that stuff confidential. Everything about your student is confidential. You cannot go out and spread things and talk about data and, oh, Johnny did this today. You don't know who's listening, okay? And that could be really bad for you. Professional responsibilities. Dress the part. Make sure you take pride in looking your best for your students. When you look your best, they'll see you at your best and they'll respect you more. Okay? All right, let's move on. Page 10. There are QR codes at the end of each unit. I want you to go ahead and scan that QR code, and you're going to dive into the things that it's talking about um, with classroom management sometimes, with being an effective teacher. There's some really good tools located within those QR codes. So go ahead and scan that QR code for unit A to summarize it. All right, your teacher script. On the first day of school, Who writes a teacher script? Me, I did every single year. I wrote down exactly what I was going to do, exactly what I was going to say. Although we didn't have a set schedule for specials and PE and all the things yet, I wrote down for each minute what we were going to do so that I was prepared. That goes back to that planning, right? I was prepared for the day. And that's why a teacher script is so important. All right, page 12. How to succeed on day one. At the top, I highlighted what you do on the first days of school will determine your success or failure, circle success and failure, as a teacher for the rest of the school year. And that is absolutely true. What you do on those first few days of school is going to set the tone for the whole year. When I was in college, I had a professor, and she told us it's easier to be a little bit harder at the very beginning of the year and to ease up structurally than to start off being easy and, playful, and then try to get harder as the year goes on. How you start the year is going to set that tone, okay? Always remember that. I also starred was circled in the middle of page 12. Successful teachers have a script or plan ready for the first day of school. If you haven't already written that script, go ahead and write the script. You know, 7:45 to 8 o'clock on the first day of school. You know that you're going to be greeting parents. You know that you want them to check their transportation. Those are the important things that you're doing from 7:45 to 8 o'clock. Greeting students, greeting parents, checking transportation, making sure that you're building what? That classroom community. Okay. For example, from 8 to 8:30, I'm walking around and I am looking at students, making sure I know their name, making sure they know my name, seeing how they're doing. I'm comforting those students that might be upset and crying because it's the first day of school. They've been with grandma, mom, aunt, uncle, whoever for the summer. And so even if they're returning to LPS, they're still overwhelmed, some of them. They're still nervous. This is a brand new teacher, brand new friends. Okay. Be that comfort, be that safe zone for your students. Okay. Write down each minute of the day. Practice going to the restroom. That's important. And we're going to talk about rules and procedures later on. But practice all of those things. Write it down in that script. What are you practicing? Are you practicing getting up, sitting down? Are you practicing coming to the carpet? Are you practicing walking around the room? Are you practicing going to the restroom? What are you doing throughout the day? Have that script, have that plan. It is going to help you. I also highlighted midway on page 12. The effective teacher began their first day of school by covering the subject matter or doing a fun activity. Those teachers spent the rest of the school year chasing after students. Dr. Thornton, Mr. Bates will agree with me. We are not looking at anyone in their classroom walking around with a teacher's edition at LPS. That is not what we're doing. On that first day of school, you're getting to know the students. You're building that classroom community. You're setting the precedence of I am the teacher, you're the student. You're going over rules and routines and procedures. You're checking transportation. You're making sure that everything on that first day of school is safe, is structured, and it is planned. At the very bottom of page 12, the last little paragraph, the effective teacher spent time explaining to students how the class was going to be organized, and structured so they know exactly what to do to succeed. Have that plan. Go ahead and tab that page. You want to come back to it and read it the night before school. All right, let's go on over to page 17 and 18. Tab that page too, guys. The 4 stages of teaching. All right, you're going to have your fantasy stage, your survival stage, your mastery stage, and your impact stage. And I'm not going to read all these stages to you, but go on ahead and read these stages. Okay. And then after you read these stages, I want you to send me an email or send me a text message. What stage do you think you're in? And how do you think you're going to move to the next stage? If you're a brand new teacher and you're still in fantasy one, that's okay. Be truthful with where you are. But how are we going to move to stage two, which is survival? If you're in survival and you're in stage two, how are you going to move to stage three, which is mastery? Have a plan personally for yourself. How are you going to move to that next stage to make you a better and effective teacher? I also start at the very top of page 17. Student achievement at the end of the school year is directly and conclusively related to the degree to which the teacher implements classroom procedures from the beginning, day one of the school year. And that is true. All right, chapters 3 through 5, planning. Y'all, I cannot tell you the most important thing about planning, with or with others. Planning is so important. Luckily, Dr. Thornton and Mr. Bates has given you at least 2 days, an hour of planning. Use those wisely. If your planning period, your hour planning, and you know that each week you're going to have this hour planning on Tuesdays, plan to make your copies for the week. Plan to, um, organize your classroom. Make sure that planning is effective because that is going to make or break your classroom. Students can tell when you don't know what you're doing. They can, whether they're in kindergarten or whether they're in second grade. They know that if you don't have a plan, or if you know what's going on and you do have a plan. Please don't come in and think that you're just going to go with the flow and just do whatever. Don't do that. Have a plan and plan effectively. Our administrator has given us an effective amount of time to plan. So please use it. There is no excuse as to why we're not set ahead at least a week in advance, because we do have the time to plan. Okay. On page 20, I did highlight, we teach you to plan so that you can plan to teach. If you need help with planning and organizing, please don't be afraid to let me know. I am here to help. I was a big planner when I was in the classroom. I would plan months in advance. So I know that everybody is not like that, but I can help you plan a week in advance. That is a standard measure, is to plan at least a week in advance. You don't know what's going to happen, with you or, someone at home that, could be, having to call in on a sick day. And if you don't have any plans, that puts your fellow coworkers in a bad spot. Okay. So make sure you have a plan because you don't know what's going to happen the night before. Okay. So plan a week in advance on those hour planning days that you might have. All right, I went on ahead and tabbed page 27. Why is planning so important? Should we lean on others and learn from others? Absolutely. Your students learn from each other, and so do adults. I learn from my fellow coworkers all the time. It's okay if you don't know something and you go and ask your fellow teachers for help. At the bottom of page 27, under the title, Your Colleagues Can Help You, I highlighted, there is one more major resource you can use to create your classroom management plan: your colleagues. The biggest secret to teaching success is to beg, borrow, and steal. And we're not talking about going to their classroom and just taking, the things, but you want to get their ideas, steal their ideas. It's okay. If you don't know how to move forward in a certain, centers or a certain subject, steal their ideas and then make them your own. Okay. If you need help with going and watching another teacher do, a reading lesson or implementing centers or look at small group instruction, let me know. I can make a schedule. I can come in and watch your class, while you go watch a fellow colleague. It's always better to learn from one of your teachers, especially a really good teacher that's strong in a certain subject or a certain area, so that you can see it happening in real time. Take the notes, come back to your classroom, revamp, and make it your own. That's part of being an effective teacher. That's part of being an effective planner. They go hand in hand. All right, so today, Unit A, we talked about classroom community, setting the tone from day one, before day one, really, when you're starting to communicate with those parents. And again, if you haven't talked to your parents yet, please, please, please reach out to them before the first day of school. They want to know you. They want to know who their classroom teacher is and who their child is going to be spending 8 hours a day for 180 plus days. Okay? Reach out to them. Be friendly. Be positive. We talked about the effective teacher. Planning plus consistency equals less chaos later. And then we talked about the 4 stages of every teacher: the fantasy stage, survival stage, the mastery stage, and the impact stage. Don't forget to email me or come by and talk to me about what stage you're in and how to get to that next stage. Okay. Wrapping up Unit A. Question: what is your purpose as a teacher? And your challenge: write out your first 2 days of school script. That we come back on a Thursday. You should have a script for Thursday. You should have a separate script for Friday. And I would go beyond and have a script for the very next week. So I would have 3 scripts. I would have a script for the very first day of school, a script for the second day of school, and then a script for days 3 through, the next week. Contact your parents, introduce yourself, ask about transportation questions. Okay? Being effective isn't about being perfect. It's about being prepared. That word prepared, planning, comes up a lot because it is so important. If you are not prepared, hands down, you are not being effective. And we all want to be an effective teacher. You got this. Okay? I believe in you. I am here as a resource. Go back, tab up Unit A, highlight Unit A. This is your book, okay? Because you're going to want to go back and reread these pages. This is a good book. This is a good resource for you, okay? Come see me if you need help. You got this, and I got you. All right, guys. Next, we'll be going over Unit C. So I'll come back with another podcast, and we'll talk about Unit C. All right, which is Unit C is heavy, and Unit C is a lot, okay? All right, guys.